Hello again, creeplings. Today we're talking about one of my favorites. The shirt's probably gonna give it away, but today we're talking about the Monster Squad. When I say I've liked horror movies and creepy movies for a long time, this is the example I always bring up. Remember how I said my aunt owned a video store? I think we busted this tape twice. We rented it so much. For those of you not born in the 80s, or caught this on cable in the 90s, The Monster Squad is a film by Fred Dekker. Also directed Night of the Creeps, and I want to say it was RoboCop 3. One of the RoboCops. I think it was RoboCop 3. Never really directed again, poor man. RoboCop 3 kind of killed his career. But I digress. When I say this is a kids movie, I don't mean little kids. This one it didn't do well at the box office because it got lost. They didn't quite know how to market it. And the preteens and teenagers were watching The Lost Boys because it came out like 2 weeks before. And the little kids, it was PG-13, so they couldn't have watched it. This movie is kind of like The Goonies meets Abbott and Costello meets Universal Monsters. It's a monster bash for the 80s is what it is. Basic storyline. You have a group of boys. Sean is their leader. Patrick is his best friend and kind of the second in command. You got Horace, who's nicknamed Fat Kid for a reason. You have little Eugene. I don't know how they know Eugene, but they all have a monster club where they hang out in a little tree house and they talk about monster movies and slasher movies and all kinds of great stuff. All between the ages of like 13, 12, 13, 11. Sean has a little sister who's probably about 5, and Eugene's a little older than that. I'd say Eugene's like 7. Fat Kid gets picked on a lot, and one day he is rescued by cool older kid Rudy. We'll get back to Rudy in a minute. Rudy's in junior high, but Rudy ends up joining the Monster Club. At the whole point from the beginning of the movie to this time happening, a mummy goes missing from the museum. A man goes to the police station claiming he's a werewolf and needs to be locked up. They know this because Sean's father is a cop. This will come in handy later. We also see that Dracula is active, and they collect the Frankenstein monster as well as somehow the Gill Man shows up. All boils down to this. There is a point in the year where good and evil stop being in flux. And evil can destroy this amulet of concentrated good. They find out about this amulet of concentrated good from, of all people, Abraham Van Helsing's diary that was sold at a yard sale. They can't read it, so they go to their local, they call this guy Scary German Guy. I suppose at 12, 13 years old, the old recluse who has a very thick German accent, probably a bit scary. Turns out he's a sweetheart. He's also a concentration camp survivor, so he knows what real monsters are about. But he translates this diary because it's in German. The kids figure out Dracula's around and active. They go find the amulet. Monster fighting ensues. I'm telling you, this is an 80s bash that if you grew up in the 80s and you know this film, you love this film. I would not suggest it for anyone who's sensitive to name calling, though, because there's some very insensitive 80s homophobic insults, I'm not gonna lie. But it is so well cast. It's so well written. There's comedy gold in this that I think really only an 80s kid could enjoy. but I highly suggest you give it a go if you liked The Goonies, if you like kind of 80s comedies, 80s kids movies, tweeny movies. Like I said, it's cast very well. We have Stephen Mocht as the cop dad. We have Mary Ellen Trainor as their mother. Robbie Krieger plays Patrick, and he had done Children of the Corn previously. Sean. I cannot remember the kid who plays Sean. I'm sorry. It'll come to me later. Little Eugene is played by David Faustino's little brother, Michael. That was cute. You have Rudy, who was played by teen heartthrob Brian Lambert at the time. And yes, every inch the teen heartthrob. Oh, that boy was so badass. How do I say this nicely? I figured out what hormones were the first time I saw him. Especially as Rudy with I love a bad boy, and with the leather jacket and the tight Levi's and the white t-shirt, the smoking and the foul language. Yeah, I figured out early on I liked a bad boy. Thank you, Ryan Lambert. So I kind of got off the story. I apologize. This whole thing is Wolfman's got nards. It's a perfect example of the humor in this film. The boys, some of them, they had split up by the time they figured out what was going on. Phoebe had found Frankenstein's monster and befriended him, and he's now on their side. They get the amulet from the scary house on Shadowbrook Road, where Dracula's hanging out trying to get it, but because it's completely warded, he can't get to it. So he's trying to get the amulet so he can destroy it. Showdown in Town Square. But when, I think it's Sean and Patrick and Fat Kid, Horace, are at the house on Shadowbrook Road getting the amulet, the poor lycanthrope is wolfed out, and he is between Sean and Horace. And Sean is yelling at Horace to kick him in the nards, because let's face it, that's your first response as an 80s little boy, just kick him right between the legs. We used the word nards. It's a thing. Fat Kid's like, Wolfman does not have nards. He's panicked. He screams that. Sean just panics even more, yells, do it. Fat Kid, man, reels that leg back right between the legs, and Wolfman goes down. This is where we get the lovely line of Horace, our lovely Fat Kid. Again, I don't know that I like the nickname, but it was the 80s. Just kind of like, Wolfman's got nards. We would say that to each other, like, around the house just to laugh. And when I saw this t-shirt many, many moons ago at Hot Topic, I had to buy it. But, okay, so we go to Showdown in Town. All the cops have shown up. Sean's dad is there. Dracula is played by Duncan Rieger. I don't remember him from much growing up. I do remember him from an equally creepy episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. Ooh, one of my favorite Draculas ever. He, like, that underlying, there is no sympathy for this Dracula. This Dracula is a single-minded killing machine. He wants that amulet. He wants it destroyed. He wants to rule the world with his monster minions. The effects are great. The creature effects were done by Stan Winston Studios. And Stan Winston has done so much, I'm pulling a blank. I can't think of an example. But even the Wolfman makeup was kind of designed by his guys to look a little like Stan. The Gill Man in this one, I love Creature from the Black Lagoon as an example of 50s sci-fi and horror. But unfortunately, at the time, they had very limited resources and techniques to make full-body Fishman outfits. This design brought the Gill Man into the next decade. It brought it up to the 80s. It streamlined it. It made the textures more real. I mean, that guy was freaking awesome looking. I'm not going to say he was scary. I wasn't scared of him, but my God, I was fascinated by it. I suppose if I saw that swimming up to me in a black lagoon, I'd probably be crapping my pants. Not going to lie there. But yeah. We have Rudy and scary German guy and Phoebe, Sean's little sister, and I think possibly Patrick. I just watched this today and I can't keep it all together. There's so much going on. They make it to town. They can't get into the church because it's locked, so there's a showdown. And I know I keep coming back to this, but this is where we get Rudy being super Mr. Badass with a stolen bow and arrow and homemade wooden stakes. Cigarette hanging out of his mouth. Patrick's like, what are you going to do? Because 3 of Dracula's brides are like super slow-moing it down the main drag. And I'm like, girls, you don't have to. I digress. He walks all up. Basically full of piss and wind, I guess. As my grandfather would say, piss and vinegar, I think is maybe what the thing is. Full of bravado. Patrick's like, what are you doing? And Rudy's like, I'm in the goddamn club, aren't I? And just proceeds to start shooting these homemade... I don't know how his aim was so amazing with homemade wooden stakes that are about this freaking thick with a basic compound bow. Gets 2 of them. One of them gets a little close and he just, bam, right with his hands. He's responsible for a lot of the takedowns. Yay. This movie kind of disappeared from theaters after about a week because it was not doing well. Again, I think it got lost, which is sad, but it really started to become a cult classic on the home video market. That's where we discovered it, my family. Every Halloween, it started off as every Halloween, then it was like every other month, and then every other weekend, and then pretty soon we probably should have just bought the damn tape. So, would I recommend? Yes. Especially to someone in their 50s or 40s that's looking for a bit of a nostalgia kick who remembers this movie? Yes. Would I recommend it to people who are a bit on the sensitive side about name calling? Maybe. Again, it's one of those, this was the 80s. Unfortunately, this was somewhat commonplace. I'm not saying it was right. I'm not saying it was acceptable, but that's what baby steps. You know, we went from there to where we are today. There is some bullying, so if that's a kind of a thing you don't want your kids to see, I, again, would not recommend this. But, I mean, if you're a 14-year-old kid who likes monster movies but doesn't want to watch anything too super gory and you want to laugh, if you liked The Goonies, I'd suggest it. I would so suggest this. But just remember, Rudy's mine. No, I'm kidding. Although I did swear at like 8 years old I was going to marry that man. I'm not. I'm happily married to another man. But he would be one I would like to meet at a convention. What is the guy's name who plays Sean? I'm going to think of it as soon as I do this video. I know I am. If you can get a hold of the DVD and the Blu-ray, there's some great extras. There's a documentary on kind of a retrospect with the girl who played Phoebe, Rudy, Fred Decker, the director, and the guy who played Sean. Andre Gower. That's who it is. Andre Gower. I knew I'd find out. Sorry, Andre. I didn't mean to forget your name. There's just a lot going on up here today. And Phoebe, Ashley Banks. I don't think Ashley Banks did a whole lot after that movie, and she might be getting back in acting now, I don't know. But there was a revival, and then we got the DVD, and we got the DVD in 2007. I remember seeing an article on it on the cover of Rue Morgue magazine, and buying that magazine, bringing it home, plopping it in front of my husband, going, that's what I want for my birthday, because that was like 3 weeks before my birthday. God love my husband, he found it, and he got it, and I still have it. I still have it. I probably owe my aunt a copy, but she doesn't have the video store anymore. Um, yeah, so that's me yapping about the Monster Squad. Sorry, my brain's all over the place. I really do love this movie, though. It's just so quotable. Creature stole my Twinkie. Come on, skanks, come get it. Wolfman's got nards. See you later, Band-Aid breath. Oh, God, there's so many good quotable lines. Look for those when you watch the movie. Also, Duncan Rieger's, like, yelling, oh, give me the amulet bit. That scream from that little girl was real. He did not go up to her they didn't rehearse it really, from what I understand. I may be misquoting this or misremembering this. I'm not 100% sure if they didn't rehearse it, but I know that the contacts and the fangs were not involved if it was rehearsed, because she said that scream was real. She was freaking terrified of him. And then you've got the sweet Frankenstein monster. The end of that just breaks your heart with him. I really don't want to give the ending away. I really don't. But let's just say this. He doesn't die, but it's not a happy ending either. Tom Noonan plays the Frankenstein monster, and he had just was in a movie where he played a serial killer and got some really good reviews. He took this so that he could kind of shake that, from what I understand. Yeah, I know, I keep looking down my hands, sorry. That's how I think. Please watch this movie. Please give this movie the love it needs. If you like cheesy cult classics, this is definitely one of them. If you did watch it, please let me know what your favorite parts are. And the Ryan Lambert Appreciation Society meets every Sunday. No, I'm kidding. But, if you had a thing for Ryan or Andre or kid who played Patrick, names left me, Robbie Krieger. If you had a thing for any of them, let me know. I want to know if I'm not the only one. I don't think I am, but I want to know everybody's thoughts on this. So, what'd you guys think of Scary German Guy? I thought he was amazing. But Leonardo Camino, the guy who played him, he's great in the movie V, or the miniseries V, the original 80s one, not the television series remake from the mid-2000s. We may talk about that at a later date. I don't know. Yeah, I'm coming up on almost 20 minutes here, so I'm going to say goodbye. And see you later, my creeplings.